Imagine growing up in a world where you are taught that your own people are the only good ones and everyone else around you is evil. I grew up in such a world, in such a family, and I believed very firmly in it. Don't get me wrong, it was not all about hate and intolerance. I criticize Islam very harshly and very bluntly today, but behind this person, who seems to be an enemy of Islam, there lies a background of a firm believer who loved what he did. It was so much about love and devotion. It was very much about the peace that I felt inside when I was a part of it. I will tell you my story about Islam. I will tell you how much I believed in it and how much I loved believing in it. But I will also tell you how much it made me hurt. I will tell you about the things that made me doubt every now and then and how I dismissed those doubts. And I will tell you about how my faith, the only thing that meant anything to me at that time, fell apart entirely at the end, leaving me in desperation, disbelief, and anger. I was born in Germany into a Turkish Muslim family as one of 3 children. My parents were always, as far as I knew them, part of a Sunni Sufi sect that was located in Turkey, but they also had a very, very strong presence in Germany, especially around the place we lived. It was a bit weird. I grew up in that family, but I can remember from my very early childhood that my parents would listen to music. And they had this stereo system at home, which was very nice and popular back then. Later, not much later, they totally abandoned the whole music thing because they consider music haram. They consider it forbidden in Islam. It is actually what scholars and sources tell us is that music is forbidden in Islam. And one hadith even tells us that near the end times there will be more female singers, and that's something very, very bad. Anyway, my parents were part of a sect. When we were still little children, my parents would take me to that sect very often, but my brother and me, we never wanted to go. We still didn't want to go until, I don't know, until I became religious, and I will come to that later. I grew up in Germany, and I went to an upper grade of schools in Germany, one where the presence of immigrants is much less than in the first regular grade where everyone is. My relations were mostly with German people, with German friends, with German teachers, but the impact of my Turkish Muslim background had impacts on me. For example, even if I considered those people to be my friends, and even if I respected my teachers at school, I would always have this thing on my mind that they are Germans and Christians and infidels. There is a word called gavur in Turkish, which comes from Persian and is derived from the word for infidels, which is kafir in Arabic. So it is basically a slur for people who don't believe in Islam or who don't believe in God. And I can remember my father using that word very often. I can remember probably every Muslim family that I have ever seen use that word, especially in the West, when they refer to the normal people outside, to the Christians and irreligious people and so on. So while I was friends with those people, and while those people were my respected teachers, I always had in the back of my mind this thing that they were Germans and infidels, you know? So the respect that I had for them was never the same as the respect that I had for Muslim people. So even though I was a good kid, I still had my Turkish Muslim background. I had problems such as the Turkish view on children, the Islamic view on children. You know, when you are in the West, it is pretty normal that your parents take care of you very much outside of the house and inside. That they provide you with the money that you need, that you can eat anything outside, that you can buy everything. I didn't have those things. German schools mostly have bakeries with very, very nice smelling things. But that was always forbidden for me. So I had pretty much never money on me. And having no money on me led me also to do things like a robbery. I was involved in a robbery. It's a shame. I'm over it. I don't do such things anymore, gladly. Another disadvantage of growing up in a religious family, especially in a Muslim religious family, is that I had no idea about sexual education. I mean, I learned all those things at school. Like, people around me would know many things already, but I didn't know anything. So I had to learn things from the TV, from school, from others. Maybe that's why, as soon as I got access to my own computer, which was a used one, I became a total internet geek. I would spend day and night on Wikipedia, jumping from article to article, and I still do that. I wasn't abiding by all the rules. I mean, in Germany, I also started to drink alcohol at a very early age. That was like 13 or something like that. My parents found out about it. It was horrible. Well, I endured some things. Like, when I was out for too long, sometimes my mother would beat me, and that is considered very normal in Muslim culture, that children can be beaten. I mean, that's based on Islam, and it's also pretty normal that older people who take care of younger people hit them every now and then. But I will come to that point later. Then came the news. My parents, obsessed with their sect, told us that we are moving to Turkey permanently. I didn't want it, but I had no choice. I had no say in this. Eventually, we moved to Turkey, where my parents told us that we would be much better. We would live in a much better place, because Turkey is a predominantly Muslim country, which is better for us Muslims to live in, instead of living in Germany, where we Muslims are not supposed to live. That's actually an Islamic way of thinking. In Islam, Germany and European countries, non-Muslim countries, are considered a Darul Harb, which means a land of war, a land where Islam doesn't rule, a land where Islam is not dominant. And you're not supposed to live in those countries except if you really have to, for financial reasons, for work, or for education, or for jihad in the sense of proselytizing. So in Germany, my view on people was very much influenced by my parents and their views, by Islamic views. I mean, the word that I associated with Christians the most was pigs, and that was not a coincidence, because that was what I was taught. I was taught that Christians are bad, that they are not our friends, and everyone is jealous of Turks and of Turkey, and they are only nice to us because they are afraid that the Ottoman Empire might rise again. But Christians were at least considered better than Jews. No, I'm not supposed to say that. I learned that it's better to say that Jews are worse than Christians, because I shouldn't in any way say that Christians are better than something. That's wrong. Well, my view on Jews, I can say very clearly that the anti-Semitism in the Islamic world, in the Muslim world, is not based on what Israel does and the Israel-Palestine conflict right now. I mean, that might have triggered something, but the anti-Semitism is a total natural thing in Islam. That's mainstream Muslim culture. Muslims hate Jews for no reason. The majority of Muslims never met a Jew, but they hate the Jew because that's what they are taught. They are taught to hate Jews because they killed the prophets. They are told to hate Jews because the Quran condemns Jews. They are told to hate Jews because Jews are traitors. And lastly, the Israel problem. If you grow up in a Muslim family, you are taught that behind every bad thing there might be a Jew. Jews rule the world, Jews make all the problems, Jews cause all the wars, and so on. That's not just our family. You can see that anywhere. You cannot so easily see that if you are an outsider, if you are not a Muslim and you talk to Muslims. But you can see that very, very well, and I'm exposing this here. If you are a Muslim, that if you go among Muslims, there is this extreme hate against Jews, not only against Zionists, not only against Israel. There is this hatred of Jews. In my example, we had a neighbor, a very, very kind woman who was one of Jehovah's Witnesses. But my mother apparently somehow mistook her for a Jew. And she told us only that we should stay away from her because she's a Jew. When 9/11 happened, I was almost 11 years old. My mom called me to the living room, and we basically saw the second plane live on TV. I remember I felt fear and sadness watching that happen, but my emotions were challenged very quickly because in the next moment my mother told me that they blame it on Muslims, but it was not Muslims, that it was the Jews and the Americans together in a conspiracy. The next day I went out, I saw other Muslims who talked about the same thing, who talked about how it was actually Jews and how America made it. I mean, You might think that all those people, especially among Muslims, who spread conspiracy theories about 9/11, might have researched something and that's why they believe in such crap. Well, they didn't. They just started talking about those things as soon as it happened. The majority of Muslims that I knew, younger or older, they were either happy about 9/11, they ignored it because they said things like, well, Muslims are killed every day. What is with a few people killed in those Twin Towers? Or they said it was most probably Jews. Or they said it was staged by the US government. Or also that it was done by people who were trained by the CIA and by Mossad to make Islam look bad. Those things started on day one. Then with Germany, we moved to Turkey. Well, in Turkey, my parents told me that everything will be much better. It's funny, in Germany, I wasn't allowed to stay out after 9 or and 10. I would still do. But in Turkey, I was allowed. Well, in Turkey, we moved to the capital city, Ankara. And it was filthy. It was disgusting. No respect for women. No respect for anyone. People don't have respect for each other. People are total fucking bastards to each other. I went to a school where the teachers would beat the students. I have never seen such a thing in Germany. I came to a disgusting place, but I thought it might be just that place. But that wasn't true. In the capital city, Ankara, the sect was again present. I saw people of the sect all the time. I made my first interactions with people in Turkey, with how they live, how they think. Well, the first impressions were that they are mostly very, very ignorant. I mean, they have no basic knowledge of things. I mean, comparing one regular person in Germany to one regular person in Turkey, it was like German, Turkish, in terms of basic worldly knowledge. I made my first interactions with Turkish girls, and Turkish girls are very weird, but for a very long time, I thought it's just the Turkish girls who are very weird, who love every kind of attention, who totally throw themselves in the arms of predators. It's not their fault, It's how they are treated in society. It's how men treat them in society. It's like Turkish men are wolves and Turkish women are sheep. And the general conception that women have to be more quiet, that they have to be silent, that they should be modest and stuff like that. I mean, I hated that word, meanwhile. I literally hate that word, modesty, Because that's how a Muslim woman is supposed to be. She has to be modest. Otherwise, she's a whore. Anyway, my Turkish wasn't that good. It was actually horrible. And I didn't know what to do in Turkey. I tried to protect my way to Germany because I thought I would go back to Germany eventually. But in order to have such a possibility in the future, I had to go to Germany and come back every once in 6 months. I discussed about that very often, but my parents deliberately made that possibility go away entirely by making it impossible for me to go to Germany within the first 6 months. So everything was lost, and I became rebellious. I started to study more and more things, and my rebellion, my anger with everything, made me align with communism in Turkey. I became part of a revolutionary communist group, and I started to move further and further away from Islam. But that was not it. We moved finally to another city where my parents are still living. That's where the sect is mainly being operated. I, meanwhile, got more and more into communism, into revolutionary communism. It intensified more and more. But at the same time, I was always talking to my aunt in Germany, who was a bit older than me, and she was so lovely. She was like an older sister and like a friend to me. She was always there for me. She would send me things from Germany. She would talk with me online. She would call me. She was a very free mind person. She was a good Western person. She was there. She was a good German Western person. She was very different. She was very different. Well, I talked with her all along, and one day, I was totally shocked. I took a nap during the day. I woke up, saw my mother crying, and then when I asked her what happened, she told me that my aunt was killed in Germany by her own husband. Honor killing, a Muslim thing. Well, she told me before that he threatened her, and she called the police on him, and they gave him a restraining order, and he had to stay 100 meters, that's like around 300 feet, away from her. But he didn't abide by the rules. He found a gun that he got from an already Turkish gang that was present in the city and shot her in the middle of the street during the day to death with 3 bullets in her face. That was the biggest shock in my life that far, and for all the conversations that I had with her, everything went through my head, and instead of pushing me further away from culture and from faith, it drew me closer. I thought more and more about communism and about the whole system. In the end, it's a very long thing, but I'll just make it short. In the end, I thought that communism is nonsense. I thought more and more about religion, about Islam, about the sense in life, the reason why we are alive, and the perfect system for humanity. At that time, I also read a book in German. It is called The Alchemy of Happiness by Ghazali, an Islamic scholar from centuries ago. It influenced me so much that I thought more and more about religion. Until that time, I was just a guy who was upset with his best friend in Germany because he made a joke about, including Muhammad. But after that, I suddenly became more religious and I joined the sect. So I joined the sect. I would live a very pious, very devoted Muslim life. I would spend every time thinking about Islam, thinking about God, praying to God, crying at night. Thank you so much for accepting me into your religion. Please never let me go. Please never let me die without faith. I even had this stupid prayer. Please never make me have doubt. Please never allow me to leave the faith. And I would go as far as to say, please take my life while I have faith. Please don't leave me. I was so I don't know. I would regularly go to the mosque. I would pray all the time. I would wake up at night and don't go to bed before I pray. And I was involved in a lot of Sufi practices, like reciting Allah's name constantly and stuff like that. Total bullshit. I'll come to that in a separate video. Anyway, so I was just going on my path in the sect, and I was practicing Islam very, very much, and it felt beautiful. I mean, this feeling to be connected to God, this feeling to just want to be accepted, to just live for the one who creates you, to know who created you, and to just devote your life to him. It was beautiful. It felt very peaceful and it felt very strong inside. It felt amazing inside from time to time. I mean, there were times that I was totally overwhelmed with this love and devotion that I had for Allah and for the religion, for Islam, and for his prophet. I wanted to dream of him. I wanted to go to paradise and see him. As said, I was overwhelmed by joy and by love and happiness for that. But it also had its dark sides. Along with that, there was also a lot of anger about the disobedience in the world, about the disobedience to the creator of everything. I mean, I just couldn't grasp the idea that people reject their creator, their Lord, and go different ways and do different things and even insult him. That would make me crazy. I was just as intolerant as any other Muslim that you see outside. No, I was much more concerned about such things, but I would avoid getting into like harsh debates and making harsh insults, because mostly I wouldn't use any like cuss words and stuff like that. I was constantly in consultation with older people from the sect, older religious people. I would talk to them, I would share my thoughts about things, I would ask them questions about the faith, and I would constantly, what I always do, read about the faith and read about the sect. The leader of the sect was a guy who was considered to be a holy person. He was very holy. He was this seemingly old, devoted, holy man who was almost like the prophets, because he was very holy and very pure and very clean, and he knew all the answers. One day he died, and then my faith became even more intense, and I started doing much more. And around that time I started to read the Quran. When I read the Quran, I felt very peaceful reading it. It was like I was again overcome with joy and everything, the whole story, but I was trying to read it and to understand it, but there were things that didn't make much sense at first. I can't even find what first made me like stop a bit. It was something about fruits. I don't know. It was at the beginnings of the Quran. I can't find it now right now. But that was nothing. I don't know, the first thing that really made me stop and think, wait, is this okay? Was chapter number 4, which is called Women. And in that chapter, in verse 34, it tells Muslim men that they are superior over women, that they can warn them if the women are behaving arrogantly, they can separate from them, and finally beat them. I made a video about that. You can watch it somewhere here right now or at the end of this video, but that was the first kind of shock, and I was still thinking about that when I was done with the whole chapter. The other thing was that the Quran says that at some point that Christians, Jews, and Sabians, which is an old religious group in Arabia, will be rewarded by their Lord, and that there shall be no fear for them. Which is weird, because I learned all my life that Jews and Christians are wrong, and that they are infidels, that they follow a false religion. It is also weird that if you read further into the Quran, you see that the Quran suddenly changes its position on Christians and Jews and condemns them. For example, in chapter 9, verse 30, it explicitly condemns Jews and Christians. But I made excuses for that, and I didn't go further into it, but it made me doubt. Another thing that I noticed during my first reading of the Quran was that there is a confusion about the information on whether Satan is an angel or a jinn, because the Quran contradicts itself with the information on whether Satan is an angel or a jinn. But I thought, okay, it's just the language and stuff like that, so I went over it again. I came to another point, which was about the sun sinking in a muddy spring, but I researched it and I put that aside too. I just dismissed that information. But that would become one of the most difficult things in the end. I just kept practicing my faith. I believed in the religion more and more. I would even do things like voluntary fastings and stuff like that when no one tells me to fast. Actually, I would fast Ramadan through, and I would also do it on other days because I thought because it felt peaceful and nice to do that. I thought I'm doing it for God. Well, at some point at school, I found out that there is an atheist at school, an atheist who also happens to be a socialist. Well, that guy came to me and he asked me a question that I couldn't answer. He asked me about Quran chapter 33, verse 53. In that Quran verse, the Quran says that people who visit Muhammad shouldn't, if they are done with whatever they are doing, not stay too long in Muhammad's house anymore and just leave immediately. And he asked me the question. He said, seriously, just answer me this question. Why the f*** is that in the Quran? And I had no answer. I didn't know what to say, because the Quran is considered the complete and perfect word of God for all humankind. But that book suddenly comes up with this little verse which says, hey, guys, if you are in Muhammad's house, please don't stay too long. Just go out, and he might be too shy to ask you to leave, but just leave. Fuck off. Well, I didn't know what to say, so I decided to read the Quran again, and I came across all the things again: beating women, the Satan thing again. Then the verse with Muhammad. Well, I thought it probably has a moral message that serves also as a message to all the believers. So I just went along with it. I left it alone. I don't know. But I had many more doubts in my head. But then I started to dismiss a lot of things that I had in my mind. And I asked some questions. I went to some older people and asked questions about what to do when you have doubts about specific things. And I talked to someone who was very close to me, and I asked him how he handles things when he has doubts. Well, he told me he had doubts about specific things too, but he just overcomes these things by thinking it through, by thinking about the reason, and by asking Allah for understanding and forgiveness. Which is understandable, because if you just think it through and if you don't want to believe that there is something wrong about it, then you find a stupid reason for it. Anyway, I came back to my faith. And I would do these things like we would go to different cities to spread the religion, to spread the information of the sect even more, to invite people to become more pious, more religious, because I saw that as my mission. The sect saw that as some mission, and that's actually your mission as a Muslim believer. If you are a Muslim, then you are supposed to tell people about Islam, and you are supposed to tell people about the right things, about what's right and wrong, and how to practice the religion as far as you know it. You should tell people, you should give people advices if you see that there are wrong things going on. That's a basic compulsion in Islam. But something was wrong with the sect. I mean, when I went online a few times, I read things about the sect, like that the dead leader of the sect was accused of things like sexual abuse, but those things were never proven and were dismissed in the end, but multiple times. And eventually, when we went to one of those cities where I was again to spread the knowledge, some guy who knew the leader in the past confronted me and said, "Hey, that leader of the sect, the guy who died, and I'm glad that he died, he was not as innocent as you think he is. Just go around and ask people in your own sect why he moved to a different city in the beginnings of his career as a holy leader." Well, so I started to ask questions among all the people in the sect, but the answers they gave me were not satisfying. They were like, people just talk, don't listen to them. It wasn't satisfying. I thought more and more about things, and reading more and more the books of the sect, I found contradictions. I don't know, it was a very respected sect, but I found, as said, contradictions in the books written by the same person about how we should practice things, and rules that I went with much stronger because I was in a sect, became harder and harder to abide by. So my sexual repression that I forced on myself started to go crazy, and my control over myself started to become weaker. So I started to do something again which I didn't do in a very long time back then. It's a bit awkward, yes, but I started to masturbate again. And I felt so fucking awful. I wanted to cut my penis off, literally. Because I felt sick and I felt sad, and I asked God for forgiveness. I asked Allah to give me strength again to overcome my sexual desire. I didn't realize back then that the sexual desire is just what's naturally in me, that I can't overcome that. Well, I realized it much later. I went to the military. Military service in Turkey is compulsory. Everyone has to do it at the age of 20. So when I was 20 years old, I went to the military and I served for 1.5 years. It was disgusting because I am just not the person who can give or receive commands. I don't like it. I don't like interfering in other people's lives, and I don't like people telling me what to do. It makes me crazy inside, and I I hated it, and I was rebellious. At the same time, during my military service, I was also praying constantly and trying to stay on the path and stuff like that. But during my military service, I became more and more courageous, and something moved me to question things. And I thought, hey, I have a mind. God created me. I believe in God. I believe in him firmly, and I believe in his word, and his word in the Quran asks me to use my mind multiple times. So in the end, I decided to leave the sect, which was considered like heresy from the point of view of the sect. That's how sects generally view things. When I was done with my military service, I moved on my own to the city Istanbul, the most popular city in Turkey, and I started to live there on my own. I went to university, but I couldn't do it because I didn't want to live with my parents anymore. I had to take care of myself, and in Turkey it's a bit harder to go to university while you are on your own. So financial reasons and everything, I had to abandon it, and I had to focus on career. I had to focus on working and earning money. So I became very successful in my career suddenly. At the same time, for 1 year after leaving the sect, I still thought very often about Islam and about the whole religion. And after I left the sect, I was much more courageous, and I was much more It pushed me to question things more and more. And I stopped practicing things. In Istanbul, everything was much more different. People were not like Europeans, but it was more like Europe than it was like Muslim culture. Things became more difficult because I remembered my childhood. I remembered Germany. During my time there, I decided to read the Quran again because I had so many things in my mind, and I tried to ask questions, I tried to Google those things, I tried to ask scholars, but some things just didn't make sense, and the answers were not satisfying. I thought about all those things, and while I read the Quran, I came across the wife beating thing again. It was wrong because I grew up in a country where women and men are equal. In Germany, I thought more and more about things, about the contradictions in the Quran. I thought about the fact that the Quran tells a story of where a guy goes to the west and finds the sun sinking in a muddy spring. And I asked questions about it. I tried to find the answer to it, and the answers were just not satisfying. It was totally absurd. That question was one of the harshest ones. It disturbed me so much. I saw contradictions between the Bible and between the old scriptures, the New Testament and the Old Testament, and the Quran. The Muslim perspective was always that the New Testament and the Old Testament, which they just call Bible and Torah, were changed, but that didn't make sense. And there were just some contradictions that didn't make sense because even if Jews and Christians changed their scriptures over time, why would they change very simple information that has nothing, that would in no way make Christianity or Judaism superior to others? And I read things like that Allah holds the sky, otherwise the sky would fall down. And the Quran says many times that the end times are very near as it was never before. Well, it's been 1,400 years. The Quran condemns believers of other religions. The Quran condemns Christians and Jews just because they were born Christians and Jews, just because they didn't have the same chance to believe in Islam, to believe in Allah. I was thinking about that. I see a lot of Muslims around who are disgusting people, awful people, but those people will go to heaven because they believe in Islam. But there are wonderful people living in Germany, for example, who were born into a Christian family, who just didn't have the same chance, and they will go to hell because they didn't believe in God. Which made me think again, if I was born into a Christian family in Italy or in America, would I be a Muslim right now? Probably not. I thought about how the West treats minorities, how the West treats Muslims, how the West treated me, how Germany treated us, compared to how Muslims treat others, how the Islamic world, how Turkey treats others, what we think of others. And I thought, are we the merciful, good ones? Is that really true? There was always this warning against questioning Islam. Whenever you have some doubt in your mind, you were supposed to say, please God forgive me, astaghfirullah, and please keep me away from such thoughts, I seek your forgiveness, and stuff like that, But I thought, we have a brain that God gives us. And he tells us in the Quran many times that he gave us a mind, that we should use our minds. And I thought, why is it so bad to use this mind to question what I'm believing in? Why is it better to believe in a religion without even thinking about it? Why is it better than questioning it? Why is doing what was just put into your mind better than doing what you actually want to do because you know what you do? I got myself the New Testament and the Old Testament. I read it, but I was totally wrong about those books. I mean, it was weird to read it, yes. But what was really weird was that I was totally misinformed about those books. But I will come to that again in a different chapter. I thought about the things like that Muhammad married Aisha at a very young age, at the age of 6, and consummated marriage when she was 9. And I tried to find excuses, but, if you are not really interested in honesty and information and you just want to stay a Muslim, it's very easy to just accept some different story about that. But if you actually value information, correct information, then you can only come to one conclusion, that Muhammad actually married a little girl. And it disturbed me. I just couldn't accept it. And I read about apostasy. I read about what happens to apostates, and how apostates stay silent, how they don't tell anyone. For a good reason, because apostasy in Islam is considered the absolute sin. It's if you are an apostate, you are lower than everything, and you deserve death. Hadiths say that apostates should be killed. People who leave the religion should be killed. What made me think again? Like if this is the right religion, if this is the peaceful right religion that God gives us, that God wants us to believe, us flawed people, why would he order other people who are also flawed to kill us because we lost faith? And I ask myself, can I really do that? Do I really have the courage to do this? Well, I remember that moment. Everything stopped for a bit, and I just thought everything through, and I laid down, and just looked up to the ceiling. And I thought to myself, you have seen everything. You have studied everything over the last years. You can do it again. But from what I have seen so far, it just doesn't make sense. And if I'm wrong, then God forgive me. But I'm not a Muslim anymore. Then I was done with it. Until that moment, everything that made sense to me was Islam. Allah was with me all the time, and Allah was the reason why we are alive. Suddenly that was gone. I thought about it day and night. I was suddenly desperate, and I felt lonely. I felt useless. I felt like I have no purpose anymore. But I studied it day and night, and I found more and more reason why Islam is wrong. One day I came home from work, and I saw this show on TV where they were discussing about near-death experiences and about supernatural explanations and stuff like that. It had nothing to do with what I believed in, but it triggered something. I was so desperate, so devastated, and after watching that show, I felt even more depressed. I felt awful, and I felt like there is no purpose anymore. So I went to my room and moved to my window, and I lived in like the 6th floor. I was about to commit suicide. I almost did it, but something held me back and I didn't do it. I thought, okay, here is the deal. Do something in life. Care about yourself from now on. Care about people from now on. Care about the world. Care about all the problems that we have. Focus more on yourself and on everything that is actually real and everything that you can see. And I started to follow atheist pages and stuff like that on Instagram and on social media. And I had an exchange of messages with one of those pages that I used to follow. We started to know each other more and more, and we started being more and more interested in each other. But she lived in America and I was in Turkey, so she came to visit me. And she also inspired me to create the whole apostate prophet thing on Instagram. It was then when I realized I am not safe in Turkey, because in Turkey it is a crime to criticize Islam, it is a crime to criticize the government, it is a crime to criticize Turkey and to criticize Muslims. It's a crime. I could have been locked up all the time. I didn't feel safe anymore, and I wanted to go to a different country anyway. I made all my plans, but then, thanks to her, we made a new decision and we changed everything, and I moved to the United States of America, and now I'm here. And now she's my wife. Now that I'm here, I feel fearless. And I want to speak out everything. I want to tell you everything that I have on my mind, and everything that I made it through, everything that I know, everything that I read. I want to tell you the whole truth about Islam and about Muslims. I think everyone has to know this. It can't stay a secret. And I am here to use and to protect one value that makes all of us free. Freedom of speech. Thank you for watching, and see you next week in the second and last part of this series. Thank you, and see you next week.